Um, Again, welcome to a special August meeting of the Benton County Master Gardeners Association. Joining us tonight are also Master Gardeners from Lynn County. The board made a decision a few months ago not to have our annual potluck or picnic in September. And believing even before a lot of the no, don't do this from Oregon State and the governor came down, that it wouldn't be prudent to gather in a large group like that. But I thought we still should have some program on food. And this is also late summer, the time of year when some of the vegetable crops that we have been diligently trying to raise suddenly really start coming on strong, and everybody suddenly has too many cucumbers, summer squash, zucchinis, tomatoes, and what are we going to do with them all? So here's one idea. This is out of the Gazette Time a couple of weeks ago. Mom's making us some ice pops. Yes, she saw that recipe on the cooking show she watches. So wait, what flavor? I'm betting on zucchini. I'd rather eat the stick. Well, I think our speakers tonight can do better than that. And so I'd like to introduce, first of all, Jeanne Brandt, who provides extension food safety and preservation programming in the Lynn and Benton counties. She trains and manages the local Master Food Preserver program, and I know several of our Master Gardeners are also Master Food Preservers. Along with Nellie. Is that Nellie Oler, by the way?
No.
Another Nellie. You mentioned someone who helps you with editing.
Oh, yes, Nellie Oler, yes. I thought I was looking for her picture here. No, it is, yes, that Nellie.
Anyway, one of the things that Jeanne does is edit and update all of the food safety and preservation materials, the teaching resources, and she also provides statewide coordination for the Master Food Program. Jeanne, what I'd like to do is let you go ahead, and I will introduce Tina when you're done, and she's ready to go.
So we'll see if we can make this work. Okay, does everyone see that? Alan, can you hear me? Does everyone see that?
Yeah, I see the presentation, and now you've got the
I wanted to make sure. And so I want to say hello to everybody. And I didn't realize that this presentation was going to be an alternative to your regular potluck. And so I hope it's at least as interesting as, or close to the excitement of a potluck. And so following me, Tina is going to talk about eating, incorporating zucchini into your daily meals. And so I'm starting with talking about storing and preserving zucchini. And I don't know if you know, there's a national holiday early in August that is National Leave Zucchini on Your Neighbor's Porch Day. And I don't know how many people have participated in that in the past, but hopefully you'll get some ideas tonight so you'll have less that you're leaving around the neighborhood in unlabeled packages. First, I want to make sure that everyone is aware of the food preservation resources Oregon State University Extension Service has available. This is the 40th anniversary of our Master Food Preservers volunteer program. I know that it's a little younger than the Master Gardener program and certainly patterned after the Master Gardener program, and we're very happy that we have a lot of crossover between the two programs, and I see several names here, so I know we've got some people who are both Master Food Preservers and Master Gardeners. So we've made a real effort in the last few years, since more Americans are getting their information online than from any other source. So we've made an effort to ensure the Extension Service has the information people are looking for in a very accessible location. And so we have a website, this OSU Fusion, and it has all of our current tested instructions in their entirety And we've written all of the publications for preserving just about everything you can think of in a very step-by-step manner. So people should be able to download or get a copy of these food preservation publications and follow the written steps so that you will be safe and successful at preserving zucchini or whatever else you want to preserve for later. And if you're not sure, we usually have a lot of hands-on classes, and not on there, but we also have our hotline. Monday through Friday, we've got a hotline staffed out of Lane and Douglas County that has a toll-free number, and we get thousands of calls there. And of course, Ask an Expert. And a couple other resources I wanted to point out. We have an app that's a checklist of all the steps to go through for food preservation, and that's on our publication website. And anyone who's doing pressure canning needs to have the gauge on their canner tested each year before you do your canning. We had a tough call today. Someone brought in their canner gauge for testing, and the gauge was way off, and they had just canned the garden's worth of green beans. And so now we're worried about the contents of their jars. So we suggest you get your canner gauge tested before you're canning. So we are focusing on zucchini tonight, and I think zucchini is one of those things that doesn't get the respect it deserves. Some people do treat them kind of like a bit of a joke. However, it is truly a very valuable agricultural commodity of the nation. There's a very strong market for zucchini, and a very growing market as people's dietary preferences have changed in the last few years, and particularly more of a focus on reducing grain products and wheat and consuming more vegetables. And so we're seeing zucchini in more forms in supermarkets. And you can look at some of the prices here. And so you can see these are from our local supermarket. I went down to the store here in Albany and took pictures on the counter. And you can see the prices of pretty small quantities of prepared zucchini. So when you're dropping the sacks off at the neighbor's porch, you are truly sharing valuable treasures with them. You can see that there's even frozen zucchini, and we'll talk a little bit about freezing your own at home. So again, there's a lot more interest in consumption in zucchini than I ever remember. As gardeners, you probably know this. This is a new word I learned, curcubits, which are the family of zucchini and other summer squash. The other summer squash are often the yellow squash. And as we talk about zucchini, both are interchangeable, both summer squash and zucchini, in terms of consumption, preparation, and preservation. They have a bit of a different flavor to them, but they are texturally the same, and so they can be handled the same. And so you probably know that you do need to check your vines on a regular basis. And then look for vibrant, smooth skin. It does help to keep some of the stem on. These thin-skinned vegetables will, I guess they're fruits, but will wilt quickly once they're harvested. And so keeping a bit of the stem on will help slow the deterioration. Keeping them dry, so if you're harvesting them and they are clean, we suggest not washing them until you're ready to use them. If they do have mud or soil on and you wash them at harvest, then make certain they're dry before you store them. And then storage is best in a cool location. And of course, 55 degrees is between our refrigerator and the kitchen counter. And so you have to generally pick one, either on the kitchen counter or on the refrigerator or in the refrigerator. Once they've been cut or sliced, then they should be refrigerated to make certain that there's no potential for pathogen growth. And they do have a really short storage life, maybe 3 to 5 days after picking. As they age, they on the vine, the skins thicken and the flesh toughens a little bit. And if you've got real big zucchinis, you may need to make some choices about different uses for them. Generally, in stores and farmers markets, we only see the really small zucchini. So in commercial fields, they do check them probably more than once a day for harvest. Okay, and then preserving. So if you've eaten all you can and shared all you can, then how do you hope to make your zucchini last through the year? So it can't be canned, just canned zucchini. And because the flesh is so soft, once it's fully cooked, it compresses. And so it would just turn to mush in a canning jar. And so it would be such a poor quality product, most people wouldn't want it. And second of all, as it compresses like that, then the heat transfer is really difficult. And so it couldn't be canned safely either. So there are no instructions for safely canning just plain zucchini. We do have one set of instructions for canning tomatoes with some zucchini in them in our P&W Canning Tomatoes publication. And so that appears to be a pretty popular combination that people may use then in soups and stews and zucchini, or in soups and stews, or lasagna sauce is the combination of tomatoes and zucchini, but there isn't canning instructions for just plain zucchini, but they freeze well. Freezing's an ideal way to preserve zucchini. I always encourage people to think about what they're going to do with it when they thaw it out. And so if you have a plan, then you can prepare it in the form that chunks or grated or chopped or spiralized, and then pre-measure it too, so that each package is the amount and the type of product that you'll use when you do thaw it out. If you are going to preserve real large zucchinis, I'd suggest peeling them and taking the seed cavity out of the inside. But for the smaller ones, the peel and the seed cavity in the center should be tender enough to just preserve and consume then. And if you are going to leave the zucchini in larger chunks for soups or thin slices that you'll put in your lasagna, then those will wind up best if you steam blanch them. So just partially cook them before you freeze them. They'll wind up with a better texture at the end. If it's something that you're going to use in baking, so you grate it, then that grated zucchini will be just fine if you don't steam blanch that. And then if you've got your spiralizer, and you can see in this second picture here that these have been spiralized, and depending again on the use of those, if you're going to put those in soups and stews and want them to maintain a little better texture, then steam blanching those will wind up with a bit of a more firm end result. But blanching is always optional in freezing. It's not a safety measure. It stops the ripening enzymes in the product, and since zucchini's fairly mild flavored anyway and it's quite soft tissue, you may not notice a dramatic difference for any zucchini that hasn't been blanched before freezing. So you might just blanch it some without this year and see if you're happy with either method, or if you can tell the difference between either method. A very popular use of zucchini and summer squash is to dehydrate it. So get out that dehydrator. I know a lot of people have dehydrators in their closet or borrow one. There's a lot of food preservation equipment that's available in your neighborhood and only gets used by its owner once or twice a year, or maybe not every year. We really encourage the equipment rather than going out and buying more. So dehydrated zucchini is a great treat. And traditionally, a lot of people just slice the zucchini in the rounds, and but I got a spiralizer that has a thin blade on it, that they called it a fettuccine blade, and so I swirled it and it made these long spirals, which I really liked. And zucchini and other summer squash are very mild flavored, and so in terms of dehydrating, and we'll talk about the same thing in pickling, they lend themselves extremely well to the spice palette that you prefer. And so when you're going to dehydrate or pickle, you can decide what and seasonings and salt and chili powder that you like, and then coat your zucchini with that. I use nutritional yeast and garlic and lemon and a little bit of chili powder, and that was delicious. Nutritional yeast is often used in vegan products to give them a little more a rich flavor, almost a cheesy flavor, and it worked very well on the zucchini. And then another batch I used ranch dressing mix because I had it, and so I sprinkled that on, and those were really flavorful too. And then they were fun to eat because they were in these long spiral pieces. So in terms of dehydrating, there's not much of a safety concern, and you can flavor them at what spices you've got in your cabinet, and sprinkle them on, put plenty on, and then dry them until they're crisp. With dehydrated products here in the Pacific Northwest, once they're dehydrated though, make sure you package them in airtight Ziploc bags, jars with tight lids, plastic containers with snap-on lids, because if there's any airflow at all, they'll absorb moisture out of the air and they'll no longer be crispy. And there's some potential for mold, but they're not nearly as delicious if they're kind of damp and chewy. So I encourage people to try dehydrating them and see what kind of flavors you like on those. And finally, pickling. So zucchini and summer squash can be substituted in any cucumber recipe. So if you have a favorite cucumber recipe, you can just substitute in the zucchinis that you have. They will be slightly softer. They won't ever have the crispness that some people like in cucumber pickles, like dill pickles. But for bread and butter pickle recipes or relishes where you expect a softer pickle, they're a very good substitute. Part of the reason is that, again, they're such a mild flavor, they'll absorb the spices that you choose in that pickle recipe, and so you can spice them as desired. And if you've done pickling before, maybe you've heard that the spices in pickling are all optional. And so you can add and subtract any dried spices in pickling and not impact the safety at all. If you just want a few pickles, you don't have to worry about the recipe, and you can just mix your vinegar brine up and refrigerate them. But if you want to store them, if you want them shelf stable and you want to can them, we suggest that people use a tested recipe. And looking at recipes, there should be at least as much vinegar as water in any brine when you're making pickles, including zucchini pickles. And that's one way we analyze pickle recipes to make certain they're safe. And then there should be a processing step, a heat treatment step for the entire jar with the lid on, so that you know that any final pathogens have been destroyed before the jar seals, and then they should be shelf stable. But if you're just going to refrigerate a couple jars full, then the strength of the brine isn't as important as it would be if you were going to can them. And there's one recipe in particular that was made for summer squash, And we had a master gardener make this zucchini relish. She said she used the coarse grinder on her KitchenAid, and you can see her quote there, "These taste like honey mustard pretzel chips, but they're just not crunchy." And so they are great on hot dogs or hamburgers or as a chip dip. And I suggest now dehydrating these. I don't know if you've ever had dehydrated pickles, but they're really pretty tasty little things. Sweet pickles are like little candies, and things like dill pickles or hot pickles, once they're dehydrated, are real little bursts of flavor, and they can be mixed in salads or put in sandwiches or just eaten on a relish tray. And so pickling doesn't necessarily have to be the final step either. Once you've got your pickles, you can dehydrate those, and they're a real novelty. They're real intense flavor. They're really delicious. So try that. If you have jars of pickles that you are getting tired of, pour those out on your dehydrator shelves and see how they taste. And then finally, if you just can't preserve anymore and you're tired of them all, I thought these were cute. So someone made some fall decorations out of their last zucchini. So I hope I gave you some ideas on preserving zucchini so that you'll have it the rest of the year and don't have to eat it all up right now. Any questions? I see there's some entries in the chat.
Hi there, Jeanne. That was just me sharing some of the resources that you were talking
Okay. Oh,
about.
thank you.
So if anybody's wondering about things like the canning timer and checklist app, or Ask an Expert, or the home food preservation site for OSU, if you open up your chat from the little speech bubble that should appear somewhere on your screen, you'll be able to find links to those.
Great. And I encourage people to try some pickling, even if it's just a jar or two that you set in your refrigerator and let it sit for 4, 5, 6 days and eat those. But zucchini and summer squash, again, are very mild and just lend themselves to soaking up the spices that you would put in a pickle mixture. So give that a try.
Well, gee, this almost makes me wish someone would leave a bag of zucchini on my front porch.
Or one big one.
we grow lots of cucumbers, but no zucchinis this year. And now I feel like I'm missing something.
Good.
Thank you, Jeanne.
Sure.
Well, if there are no questions, let's go ahead. We have a note from Carol Walsh.
This is Elizabeth. Did you want me to read Carol's question?
Sure.
Or comment? She's pointing out, she says, we did make pickles at Seed to Supper at OSU. So when that class for new gardeners on a budget was taught by master gardeners, she's reminding us that indeed they did make those pickles.
Good.
Okay, well, I'll move on and introduce our second speaker tonight. Tina Dodge has been working with OSU Extension for over 15 years. She holds the rank of senior instructor and works for both Lynn and Benton counties, I believe. She is coordinator for SNAP-Ed and FNAP. What these stand for is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program and its education component, and the Expanded Food and Nutrition Education Program. She conducts SNAP outreach, and she prioritizes serving Spanish-speaking immigrant families and other underserved people through the Extension Family and Community Health Program. Tina is personally and professionally committed to ensure that families are well served and their needs are being met in the community. Tina, welcome. We're looking forward to your talk.
Thank you so much. Can everyone see my screen? I think I have shared the Food Hero screen.
Yes.
I see it.
Oh, good. I was having technical difficulties, even though Jeanne and I had practiced. So thank you so much. So I just wanted to share a resource that was developed through SNAP-Ed, which is our Food Hero social marketing program. So I know that we're talking about zucchini tonight, but this is our go-to resource for SNAP-Ed educators. And please know that, you know, SNAP-Ed is a federal program mandated to serve low-income audiences. And as we move forward with COVID, we had a wonderful statewide meeting today, and really informative, talking about, you know, going forward and just, you know, families that are living on the cusp, marginalized families, they're going to be carrying more of a burden economically going forward, not just now, but for the next 6 months to a year. And so this resource was research-based by our families. So the food decision makers of the household informed what's part of this social marketing. And so I just wanted to share that. I know Carol Walsh is on this call as well, so she could have given this talk. She's part of the Food Hero state team. But I just wanted to let you know that this is, and I recognize other names on this call too, like Tina and Janice, who Janice used to was the coordinator of this program for years. So, and please, if you have any questions or if I'm going too fast, but I just kind of wanted to give you an overview of Food Hero as a resource for you as master gardeners. I know currently we're not able to work out in the community, but you may find these of use personally or share with your neighbors or grandkids or nieces or nephews, okay? So how it is organized, and everything is available in Spanish and English. So this homepage, you can see it's really housing a recipe database, but you can search those recipes either alphabetically by ingredients, right? So if you have like an abundance of zucchini, you can look for it under zucchini, or if you're in a different season and you're trying to use up corn or tomatoes or kale or other things. There's a gardening section, and then everything also is in Spanish. And I'm hoping my website, there we go. So everything, it's a mirrored program. And so Food Hero in Spanish is Héroe de Alimentos. So if you click on here, this is our monthly Food Hero monthlies is what it's called. Let me switch back to English. But they're Food Hero monthlies. What our audience said is they wanted something that looked like that it came out of a magazine, right? They did not want anything that looked like it came from the government, right? They were distrustful of the government, right? And they just they did not want a newsletter. Like so they told us if you call it a newsletter, we do not want it. They wanted it to look like it came out of a magazine. So every Food Hero monthly, it is based on Oregon produce, but we also have items that are readily used by audiences, by everyone, right? So we have a pizza one, we have a hamburger one, we have a tofu one, milk. So these are Oregon products, but also products that people use on a daily basis. So I brought up the summer squash one, which includes zucchini, but every Food Hero monthly contains the same content, right? So there's a section around shopping and saving, the different types of squash. One of the things that talks about how you would use squash blossoms. So we know that Latin American families, especially those from Mexico, use squash blossoms in some of their cooking. So there's a squash blossom. And then there's always a section on how to store it, right? Because one of the things we want families to know is, we don't want their grocery dollars to go in the garbage can, right? So how do you store well to save, store the produce to save money, right? To waste less. There's always recipes on the back. So this one includes a zucchini salad, and then there's sauteed zucchini. And so again, I just wanted to emphasize, I know we have master gardeners that are some real foodies and gourmet cooks, but these recipes are really designed for that audience that has basic ingredients, right? So there's not any recipes that have 20 ingredients. There's going to be things that they have on hand, and really accessible, right, to those under-resourced families. There's always going to be a section on how to get kids involved in the kitchen. So we know from research that when kids are involved in cooking the food, they're likely to taste the food. And that goes with gardening as well, as you know, right? When kids are involved in the gardening, they're more likely to taste the produce. So we see that in our own Growing Healthy Kids gardening curriculum. So I'm gonna go back, and hopefully I don't have any technical difficulties. So there is a variety. These are, again, they're based on the season, so that you can look by alphabetical. And I want to go back to the recipes as well. So if you have, and everyone can see my screen still, Jeanne? Everything looks good? Okay. So you can look by the categories of how you can search for recipes. They are alphabetical, but you can search by ingredients list. And so here's the ingredients. So you can look for under the food groups, that there's the vegetables. So we look under zucchini, and then here's all the recipes that are based on zucchini, okay? And when you go into, and this is, I'm gonna show you a little recipe demo. It's from our Family and Community Health faculty in Clackamas. She did an amazing cooking video, so I'm gonna share that with you before we continue on. But the garden vegetable cakes, you'll go in here, and I don't think I mentioned, but all of these recipes meet dietary guidelines. And that's important because we know, low-income audiences and communities of color that are primarily part of that low-income audience, they're predisposed to chronic conditions, right? So it's important that we follow the dietary guidelines in SNAP-Ed, and the recipes that we're encouraging families to use at home. We know when families cook at home, they're eating better. These all follow the dietary guidelines. So I just want to see, so here's the garden vegetable cakes. If you need it in Spanish, which we provide all bilingual materials for in Lynn Benton, it's pasteles de vegetales de la huerta. So there's ingredients. Let me go back to the English. So then there's notes on the recipe, and then there's the video as well. I'm going to bring up the video. I know the video that hopefully it comes up.
Hi, my name is Kelly Street.
Can you see it?
I'm a registered dietitian with the OSU Extension Service Family and Community Health Program based in Clackamas County. Now is a great time to get back into the... Hi, my name is Kelly Street, and I'm a registered dietitian with the OSU Extension Service Family and Community Health Program based in Clackamas County. Now is a great time to get back into the kitchen and prepare some budget-friendly, quick and healthy meals that your family will enjoy. Today we are going to prepare some garden vegetable paste, which is like a vegetable pancake. This recipe can be made using a combination of vegetables and served with any meal. Eggs are a main ingredient in the recipe. They are affordable and a good source of protein and essential nutrients. You will find this recipe at foodheroes.org. Let's begin. To save time, we shredded the vegetables, minced the garlic, and set all of the ingredients on a tray in the order called for in the recipe. We also set out a skillet and our cooking utensils. This process is known as mise en place. Now we are ready to cook. We dump the cheese, flour, baking powder, dill wheat, and salt and pepper into a medium bowl and mix well. Next, remove the eggs, green onions, lemon juice, and garlic into the dry mixture until well blended. Now we stir the shredded vegetables into the mixture. Next, we heat the burner on the stove to medium high and oil our skillet. Once the stove is hot, we measure 1/3 a cup of batter and dump it in the skillet. The cakes are done when they turn golden brown. Serve warm with your choice of condiments: salsa, sour cream, ketchup, barbecue sauce, plum sauce. You will find a copy of this recipe and other healthy, simple, and tasty recipes at foodhero.org. Thanks so much for joining us for this recipe demonstration. Bon appetit.
So I hope you enjoyed that. I like that one because it's very short and she did a great job of explaining the recipe. And I wanted to share it because it's not only good for zucchini, but it's any shredded vegetable. So it works with potatoes, carrots. It's really good. The other section I just wanted to show is the kids section. So again, it's mirrored in Spanish, but they have the recipes. So one of the things they do as Food Hero, let me go back. I'm having trouble with saying that the certificate is not up to date on the Food Hero website. But one of the, I'm sure it's my system, but one of the things they have, we as educators have done food tastings with kids. And so when a group of kids provide their feedback and they like the recipe and 70% of the kids enjoyed the recipe, then it becomes a kid approved recipe. And that makes moms that are trying new recipes have a little bit of confidence when they're trying with their own kids. So there's a kid approved section where those recipes have been tasted and given a thumbs up by kids. There's coloring sheets that mirror. So if you want a zucchini coloring page, and I'm sorry, I'm just having a difficult time with there's activity sheets. And again, these are in Spanish and English. So there's crossword puzzles and there's word search based on fruit. I'm not sure if this is going to come up, but there's a garden. Let me see if I can get it to work. So this is one that was developed recently during COVID. Can you see the garden plants? Yeah, and this is in Spanish and English as well. And so it goes through color in these garden plants. When you're done, try drawing your favorite garden plant or other sheet of paper, or imagine a new fruit or vegetable that does not exist and draw that. How does it smell and look or taste? So we want kids to really think about that experiential piece. I'm going to try to bring up a coloring page. So all the Food Hero monthlies have coordinated coloring pages with those. So if you wanted to have that summer, oh, here's the garden plants one again. It's a coloring page. So it's in there. I like how they've set up the website. So if you didn't find it under that particular one, you're going to find it under this one. It should be on the next. So there's the summer squash one. So it's a way to coordinate activities for kids. And so right now we're supporting Greater Albany Public Schools at their summer meal sites. And so when kids and families come to pick up their summer, their lunches and breakfasts, we're providing activity sheets coordinated with the Food Hero Monthly for the parent, right? And then activity sheets for the kids. And I would love, if you have any questions about the site, but I encourage you to take some time and kind of like poke around and have some fun with it. It's a great site. Does anyone have any questions?
Tina. This is Elizabeth. I wanted to let folks know that in the chat, I've linked to foodhero.org. Like you, I noticed that it was giving me a security warning. I expect that will be fixed soon, so don't let it stop you from exploring the wonders of Food Hero. I wanted to express appreciation for Carol Walsh and other Master Gardeners who've contributed to gardening and cooking tip sheets that also live on this site, which I've linked in the chat, and say thank you to Master Gardeners who've used Food Hero to prepare food for Seed to Supper students in our classes for new gardeners on a budget. So this is just an invaluable resource. I wish that as a young adult, first cooking for myself on a limited budget, that I had had Food Hero. So it's for people of all ages. I really appreciate this.
I'm very interested to see how, Tina, that you're addressing the issue of diversity in serving different people in our community. This is an issue that's come up in the Master Gardeners recently, both in terms of our membership and also of the services that we offer. And it looks to me like you're way ahead of us on doing your bit to make sure that everyone is receiving the benefit of the knowledge that you have. So thank you very much.
Well, I want to say, I'm just going to jump in and say, I was hired from Extension over 15 years ago, and really was because I was bilingual and I brought something different to the table. I never thought in a million years I would be hired for bilingualism. I was in the Peace Corps and yeah, learned how to communicate in Spanish, and was very lucky in that. And learned, I did a class this morning in Spanish. Tina was actually part of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Where I learned the practical side of nutrition. When you start to really cook for yourself, that was my first time in my life I had really cooked for myself in the Peace Corps. It's the practical side of nutrition. So.
I wanted to say thank you to you, Tina, because I've been working for healthy families for the past 3 years, and I start using Food Heroes ever since I came into this job, because the person that had this job before, she told me, oh, go on this website and print this every month for your families. So I've been doing that for the past 3 years, every month, going there, finding the newsletter, printing, and bringing on my home visits. And I just love it. And it's just the families that I work with, they just love it, love it. We do recipes together. We introduce them to new foods. So just want to say thank you for this wonderful, wonderful work you're doing for your community. Thank you.
I think one of the things I noticed about the Food Hero website and the few recipes that you showed us is the ingredients are things that we're more likely to actually have in our kitchens. I know we often look at things like Sunset Magazine or other websites. Gourmet cooking recipes, often they're things like you not only don't have in your own kitchen, you probably can't even find them in a local supermarket. And with the Food Hero recipes, it looks like we're more likely to actually have those things available in our kitchens. So that's a very handy thing to know about. And David has added a comment in the chat. David Mandel, as a former Peace Corps volunteer myself, I might add that cooking in the Peace Corps is interesting because of the differences in available fruits and vegetables. I don't know where David served, but there are an awful lot of places in the world where people don't eat the same things we do. So I'm sure it was a challenge and interesting.
I served in Malaysia. Also gardened in Malaysia. Gardening in the tropics is a little bit different than gardening in Oregon.
I can only imagine. Well, I guess if there are no further questions, I'll thank Jeanne and Tina once again for a very interesting presentation. New resources for us, things to try. I have to admit, having 2 food rehydrators, the dehydrated pickle sounds like a challenge. I've got to check that out. So thanks to all of you who attended tonight. This was an unusual meeting. We're meeting a Monday later in the month. I'm glad as many people who were able to come were able to attend. And for those of us who don't, we will make an announcement about this in the e-news, but we did record this session. And so the talk will be available on the Benton County Master Gardener YouTube channel. So thanks again to Tina and to Jeanne and for everyone who attended. I wish you all a good night and stay safe. We'll see you next month. I hope to be back to the normal 3rd Monday meeting time for another, I'm sorry, it's going to be another Zoom meeting. That's what we have available to us these days.